Admiral Krenth Volor had conquered 47 star systems in his 3-century military career, and not once had he encountered an enemy that refused to surrender when facing overwhelming force. Until now. Explain this again, Krenth demanded from the command throne of his flagship Eternal Dominance. Before him, holographic displays showed tactical data that made no strategic sense. The human fleet is withdrawing from the Tertian system despite holding defensive advantage? Confirmed, Admiral, reported his tactical officer. All human vessels have abandoned their fortified positions and are retreating into deep space. Our forces are pursuing as planned. This violates every principle of rational warfare, Krenth said. The Hegemony Ascendant had refined military strategy over 12,000 years of conquest. When defending forces held superior position, they engaged. When attacking forces pressed advantage, defenders either fought or surrendered. These were the established rules of civilized warfare that every species in the known galaxy followed. Except humanity. Perhaps they recognized the futility of resistance, suggested General Pyraxis, Krenth's second-in-command. Our fleet outnumbers theirs 3-1. Our technology surpasses theirs in every measurable category. Withdrawal may be their first rational decision since hostilities began. Nothing about human military behavior has been rational, Krenth countered. He pulled up recent engagement reports. They refuse standard fleet formations. They ignore established protocols for challenge and response. They employ weapons that technically violate the warfare conventions. And now they abandon defensible positions without engaging. This is not retreat. This is something else. What else could it be? Pyraxis asked. Before Krenth could answer, proximity alarms screamed throughout the flagship. Every display simultaneously showed the impossible. Human ships materializing from nowhere, appearing inside the hegemony formation where sensors should have detected them light years away. How did they penetrate our detection grid? Krenth roared. Unknown, the tactical officer replied. Sensors show no stealth signatures, no distortion fields, no conventional cloaking technology. They simply were not there, and then they were. The human ships opened fire at point-blank range. Not with the elegant plasma weaponry or refined particle beams that civilized species employed. They used kinetic weapons, simple metal projectiles accelerated to tremendous velocities. Primitive technology that the hegemony had abandoned millennia ago. But primitive did not mean ineffective. At close range, kinetic rounds punched through hegemony shields designed to deflect energy weapons. They tore into hull plating with devastating force. 6 hegemony cruisers were crippled in the first 30 seconds of engagement. Return fire! Krenth ordered. Full spread! Eliminate them! But the human ships were already moving, executing maneuvers that should have been impossible for vessels their size. They did not fly in formation. They did not maintain predictable vectors. They swarmed like insects, each ship operating independently with no apparent coordination, yet somehow achieving perfect tactical cohesion. They are ignoring the engagement protocols, Pyraxis said, his voice edged with something Krenth had never heard from his second before, uncertainty. They are firing from within minimum safe distance. They are targeting life support systems instead of weapons arrays. They are behaving like savages. They are behaving like they intend to win, Krenth said grimly. He watched his carefully organized fleet descend into chaos as human vessels darted between hegemony ships, creating situations where the hegemony forces risked hitting each other if they fired. Disengage! Pull back to rally point Sigma and regroup! The hegemony fleet withdrew, leaving 12 disabled vessels behind. The engagement lasted 9 minutes. By every conventional military standard, it should have been a hegemony victory. They had superior numbers and technology. Instead, they retreated while the humans held the field. In the aftermath, Krenth reviewed the battle data with growing dread. This was not how war was supposed to function. The Hegemony Ascendant had established rules, civilized protocols that made warfare predictable and manageable. Both sides deployed fleets. Both sides engaged in orbital space according to established formations. Casualties were minimized through precision targeting of weapons systems rather than life support. Defeated forces were allowed to withdraw with honor. These rules had governed galactic warfare for thousands of years. Every species followed them because deviating meant chaos, meant excessive casualties, meant conflicts spiraling into total destruction that served no strategic purpose. Humanity ignored every single rule. "Get me Commander Bexley Thane," Krenth ordered. "If the humans will not fight honorably, perhaps they will at least negotiate." The communication channel opened, showing a human woman with gray-streaked hair and eyes that suggested she had seen more warfare than her relatively short lifespan should have allowed. Commander Thane of the Earth Defense Forces regarded Krenth with an expression he could not quite parse. "Admiral Krenth Volor," Thane said. "I assume you wish to discuss terms of engagement?" "I wish to understand why you fight without honor," Krenth replied bluntly. "The warfare conventions exist for a reason. They prevent unnecessary casualties. They allow conflicts to be resolved without total destruction. You violate every protocol. You employ dishonorable tactics. You fight like barbarians." "We fight to win," Thane corrected. "Your warfare conventions are rules designed by conquerors to make conquest easier. They favor species with superior technology and numbers. They allow you to expand your empire while claiming the moral high ground of fighting honorably. We reject those rules because we refuse to lose wars according to standards created by our enemies. Without established rules, warfare becomes chaos," Krenth said. "Total destruction with no possibility of negotiated peace. Is that what you want?" "We want survival," Thane replied. "You invaded our space. You demanded our surrender. You offered us the choice between submission or annihilation. We chose a third option: fight until you leave. And we will use any tactic, any weapon, any strategy that increases our probability of surviving. If that violates your sense of honor, we truly do not care." "You cannot win," Krenth said flatly. "Our empire spans 3,000 systems. Our military forces number in the billions. Our technology surpasses yours. Even with your dishonorable tactics, you cannot defeat us." "We do not need to defeat you," Thane said. "We just need to make conquering us cost more than it is worth. Every engagement where we damage your forces without losing our own shifts the calculus. Every tactic you consider dishonorable that proves effective undermines your confidence. Every rule we break that you cannot adapt to demonstrates that your 12,000 years of military tradition are obsolete. We are not trying to win according to your definitions. We are trying to make you quit." "The hegemony has never quit," Krenth said. "The hegemony has never fought anyone who understood asymmetric warfare," Thane countered. "You have fought species that accepted your rules. That fought fleet battles in open space. That surrendered when you demonstrated superiority. We will not fight that way. We will ambush you. We will sabotage your supply lines. We will attack from unexpected vectors with weapons you consider primitive but that work. We will make every victory cost you ships and personnel you cannot afford to lose. And we will keep doing it until you decide that Earth is not worth the price." "That is not warfare," Krenth said. "That is terrorism. Call it whatever helps you rationalize losing," Thane replied. "We call it survival. And we learned it from 10,000 years of fighting each other on a planet that tried to kill us every day. Earth taught us that rules are luxuries the strong impose on the weak. We are not strong by your standards. So we will not play by your rules. We will create our own rules. And those rules are very simple, whatever works." The communication ended. Krenth sat in silence, reviewing the conversation. The human was right about one thing: the hegemony had never encountered an opponent quite like this. Every previous conquest followed predictable patterns. Demonstrate superiority. Offer terms. Accept surrender. Integrate new territory into the empire. It had worked for 12 millennia. But humanity was different. They did not care about honor. They did not value predictability. They did not accept that superior force guaranteed victory. And that made them extraordinarily dangerous. What are your orders, Admiral? Pyraxis asked. We adapt, Krenth said. The humans want to fight without rules? We show them what the hegemony is capable of when we abandon restraint. Prepare orbital bombardment of their colony worlds. If they will not fight honorably, we will not show them mercy. 6 hours later, hegemony forces approached 3 human colonies prepared to demonstrate overwhelming force. The plan was simple: destroy enough infrastructure to make resistance impossible, then demand immediate surrender. It was a plan that had worked countless times before. It did not work on humans. As hegemony ships moved into bombardment positions, they detected nothing. No defensive fleets. No orbital platforms. No resistance at all. The colonies appeared to be evacuated or abandoned. Where are the defenders? Pyraxis demanded. Unknown, the tactical officer replied. Sensors detect no military presence in system. No ships. No weapons platforms. Nothing. Then commence bombardment, Krenth ordered. If they will not defend their worlds, we will claim them without opposition. The first bombardment salvo was still traveling toward the colony when every hegemony ship in the system lost propulsion simultaneously. Not from weapons fire. Not from any external attack. Their own engines simply stopped functioning. Engineering report, Krenth snapped. Admiral, we have hostile code in our control systems, the chief engineer responded. Someone has infiltrated our network and locked us out of primary systems. We are working to regain control, but the intrusion is sophisticated. Estimated time to restoration is 90 minutes minimum. How is this possible? Pyraxis demanded. Our systems are isolated. There are no human ships in range to transmit infiltration code. The code is not being transmitted, the engineer explained. It was already in our systems. Dormant. Waiting for activation signal. Admiral, the humans have been inside our network for weeks. Possibly months. We just never detected them. Krenth felt something cold settle in his gut. Months ago, the hegemony had captured a human transport vessel. Standard procedure was to analyze captured technology for intelligence purposes. That technology had been integrated into hegemony systems throughout the fleet. The humans had allowed themselves to be captured. They had seeded the hegemony network with infiltration code disguised as normal technology. And they had waited for the perfect moment to activate it. This is not warfare, Krenth said quietly. This is something we have never encountered. Disabled and helpless, the hegemony fleet watched as human vessels emerged from the asteroid belts and gas giant shadows where they had been hiding. Not to attack. To broadcast. Admiral Krenth, Commander Thane said via system-wide transmission. Your forces are currently disabled but unharmed. You can regain control of your systems in approximately 90 minutes. Here is what will happen in those 90 minutes. Every hegemony vessel in this system will transmit its complete technical specifications, tactical databases, and strategic plans to Earth. If you comply, your ships will be released unharmed. If you refuse, we will commandeer your vessels remotely and use them to attack other hegemony forces. You have 5 minutes to decide. This is extortion, Krenth said. This is war, Thane corrected. We are using your own assets against you. This is what happens when you invade a species that has spent 10,000 years developing unconventional warfare tactics. You built your military on the assumption that everyone would fight according to established rules. We did not. We infiltrated your systems. We studied your technology. We waited for you to give us an opening. And now we are taking everything you know about warfare and using it to defeat you. The hegemony will never submit to this humiliation, Krenth declared. You do not need to submit, Thane replied. You just need to leave. Withdraw from Earth space. Stop trying to conquer us. Return to your empire and never come back. If you do that, this war ends. If you continue, we will keep demonstrating that your military superiority is an illusion. We will keep infiltrating your systems. We will keep using tactics you consider dishonorable. We will keep proving that your 12,000 years of conquest taught you how to defeat species that fight like you, but left you completely unprepared for species that fight differently." The channel fell silent. Krenth looked at his disabled flagship, at his helpless fleet, at the tactical situation that had become a complete disaster. The Hegemony had conquered 3,000 systems. They had never been defeated. They had never even been seriously challenged. But they had also never fought humans before. "Transmit the data they requested," Krenth said quietly. "Admiral!" Pyraxis protested. "We cannot simply surrender our military secrets to—" "We are not surrendering," Krenth interrupted. "We are acknowledging that this conflict has become untenable. The humans have demonstrated capabilities we cannot counter. They have infiltrated our networks. They have employed weapons and tactics we are not prepared to face. They have fought an entirely different kind of war than we expected. Continuing this engagement will result in losses we cannot afford. Transmit the data. Then we withdraw." "The Hegemony has never withdrawn from conquest," Pyraxis said. "The Hegemony has never encountered an opponent like humanity," Krenth replied. "We will withdraw, regroup, and reassess. This is not defeat. This is strategic recognition that humanity fights by rules we do not understand. Until we understand those rules, we cannot defeat them." The data was transmitted. True to Thane's word, the Hegemony vessels regained control of their systems 93 minutes later. They withdrew from Earth space without further engagement. 3 months later, Krenth Volor stood before the Hegemony Strategic Council and delivered a report that challenged every assumption his civilization held about warfare. "The human conflict has fundamentally altered our understanding of military operations," Krenth said. "We entered this war believing our technological and numerical superiority guaranteed victory. We discovered that superiority is contextual. When fighting opponents who follow the same rules we follow, our advantages are overwhelming. When fighting opponents who ignore those rules, our advantages become liabilities." He pulled up tactical analyses from the engagements. "Humans do not fight fleet battles in open space. They ambush from concealed positions. They use primitive kinetic weapons that bypass our energy-based defenses. They infiltrate our networks and turn our own technology against us. They employ psychological warfare that undermines our strategic confidence. They attack supply lines instead of engaging military forces directly. Everything we learned about warfare over 12 millennia is useless against opponents who learned warfare through constant internal conflict on a hostile planet." "Are you suggesting the Hegemony cannot defeat Earth?" demanded Arbiter Silix, senior member of the Council. "I am suggesting that defeating Earth would cost more than it is worth," Krenth replied. "We could eventually overwhelm them through sheer weight of numbers. But the casualties would be catastrophic. The resource expenditure would be unsustainable. And the humans would fight unconventionally every step of the way, making every victory uncertain and every advance costly. They are not interested in glorious battles or honorable defeat. They are interested in survival. And species fighting for survival employ tactics that species fighting for conquest never consider. So we simply allow them to defy the Hegemony?" Silix asked. "We recognize that not every species can be conquered efficiently," Krenth said. "The humans have demonstrated that they will fight with every unconventional method available to them. They will sabotage. They will infiltrate. They will employ weapons we consider dishonorable. They will attack when we do not expect attacks. They will refuse to engage when we expect engagement. And they will do all of this while sustaining casualties that would break any other species because Earth taught them that survival requires accepting terrible costs." He met the eyes of every council member. "I recommend we offer Earth diplomatic recognition and non-aggression terms. Not because we cannot defeat them militarily, but because doing so would require us to abandon every principle of civilized warfare we have maintained for millennia. If we fight humanity on their terms, we become what they are: savage, unpredictable, willing to do anything to win. If we maintain our principles, we cannot defeat opponents who have no principles to constrain them. The only rational choice is not to fight at all." The council debated for 6 hours. The final vote was narrow. But eventually, pragmatism overcame pride. The Hegemony Ascendant formally recognized Earth's sovereignty and withdrew all forces from human space. A non-aggression treaty was signed. The war that everyone expected to be a simple conquest became the first time in 12,000 years that the hegemony retreated from conflict. And the galaxy took notice. Within a year, 17 other species had requested Earth's assistance in developing unconventional warfare doctrine. The hegemony's expansion slowed as potential targets suddenly employed tactics learned from humans. The established rules of warfare that had governed galactic conflicts for millennia began to fracture as species realized those rules favored the strong and could be ignored. Commander Bexley Thane stood on Earth and watched news reports showing the hegemony's latest attempted conquest stall when the target species employed human-style guerrilla tactics. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Pharaoh Cross, joined her. "We changed the galaxy," Pharaoh observed. "By refusing to fight according to their rules, we showed every other species that the rules could be broken. We showed them that survival matters more than honor," Thane corrected. "That winning matters more than fighting fair. That species from deathworlds understand warfare in ways that species from peaceful worlds never needed to learn. Earth spent 10,000 years fighting itself. We developed every dirty trick, every unconventional tactic, every asymmetric strategy possible because we were always fighting opponents who knew us as well as we knew ourselves. The hegemony fought external enemies who followed the same rules they did. They never learned how to fight unpredictably because predictability served them well. Until they met us," Pharaoh said. "Until they met any species willing to fight without constraints," Thane agreed. "We were not the first species to refuse their rules. We were just the first species that survived refusing them long enough to demonstrate that their rules were optional. Now everyone knows. And the hegemony's 12,000-year reign as the dominant military power is over. Not because we defeated them in battle. Because we made them afraid of the cost of fighting us. They feared nothing in the universe," Pharaoh said quietly. "Until we showed them that fear is a rational response to enemies who do not fight rationally." Thane nodded. "That is humanity's contribution to the galaxy. We taught them that the rules of warfare are not universal laws. They are social constructs that can be rejected. And when you reject the rules that favor your enemy, you create a battlefield where anything is possible. That uncertainty, that unpredictability, that willingness to do whatever works regardless of honor or tradition, that is what makes humans dangerous. Not our technology. Not our numbers. Our mindset. The deathworld mentality that survival justifies any tactic. Will the galaxy ever forgive us for that?" Pharaoh asked. "The galaxy does not need to forgive us," Thane replied. "It needs to understand us. We did not start this war. The hegemony did. They came to conquer us because they believed their superior force guaranteed victory. We proved them wrong using every lesson Earth taught us about fighting against impossible odds. If that makes us savages in their eyes, so be it. We are alive. That is what matters. That is all that has ever mattered." She looked up at the stars, the galaxy that had tried to conquer Earth and failed. Not because humanity was stronger, but because humanity was willing to fight in ways the galaxy had never encountered. The hegemony feared nothing in the universe. Until they learned that humanity did not fear breaking every rule to survive. And that fear, that uncertainty, that knowledge that Earth would fight unconventionally forever if necessary, that was the new reality the galaxy had to accept. Some species called it dishonorable. Others called it genius. Humans called it survival. And survival, they had learned over 10,000 years of constant warfare, was the only victory that mattered. The rules had changed. And humanity had changed them. If you enjoyed this story, like the video and subscribe for more.